I'm glad to welcome poker players all over the world, professional players, amateurs who enjoy live in online poker gaming, and also those who are involved and interested in online gambling. I have already seen many videos about online poker gaming, but most of them are more like an entertainment content, where people share their in-game emotions, show different unusual but still small number game codes. I pretend on a professional level review of an online poker gaming, specifically in Red Star Poker Room. The topic of the video is actually wider than just playing according to Red Star software. I will try to show you what is going on in Red Star Poker Room on a long period of playing. Excuse me guys, the video can be pretty difficult to understand, but I will try to explain all the stuff the most comfortable for any level of player's way. At the same time, if you're an experienced poker player, you got a better chance to catch the most part of my ideas. Okay, let's open Red Star client program, go to history and start the first example game. I closed the camera not to disturb you, but I'm here with you, don't worry guys. I think it's pretty effective if I show you some of my own games, commenting everything what I take into account to make the most profitable decisions. Guys, I'm not aiming to show you how cool I am. More than that, some of you will manage to see more interesting nuances than I comment. But I promise to beat all your expectations in the second half of the video, where I present you statistical tests. Okay, let's play double nothing, no limit hold'em hyper turbo game. 6 players, 3 winners, who get a double buy-in price minus Red Star Room commission. Personally, I specialize on multi-table tournaments and cash games, but this game type is perfect to discuss the gaming process according to the software nuances. Before I do any move, I must choose a strategy, right? Poker is a type of financial game, guys. If we got some business owners or managers between us, every business owner playing poker knows Poker Room dreams about making all its players equal. I have $100, you have $100, we play 7 games, I win 1, you win 6, I lose all the money, Red Star Room gets $20 income as a commission. But if we play and win 1 by 1, after 50 games we lose $100 each as a commission, Red Star gets $200, 10 times more income. It doesn't prove Red Star is unfair, but I decide to choose a financial strategy called What If software tries to make all the players equal. What does this mean in terms of a usual poker game? Every time we make a good decision, software generates a hand to involve us in a bad decision, and on the contrary, if we made a bad decision, software generates a hand to involve us in a good one. This idea, which becomes a fact in the second part of the video where we will watch statistical checks, is the key statement ruling my following in-game decisions. Okay, the game starts and I concentrate my attention on good for a push hands. I skip 3 weak hands and get ace-king suited. I can't play ace-king on a post-flop, because if I play it on a post-flop, hands of my opponents will be hidden and the software will be able to put on the flop, on the turn and on the river any cards. In the second half of the video I will show you what is going on a post-flop, how the software deals cards, and you will understand why I have to refuse to play on a post-flop. So it's important to play with open hands, cause the software can't make me losing all-ins more often than it's expected on a bigger distance, otherwise manipulations will be visible and obvious to players. I understand this and I intentionally go all in to open hands and to play according to true chances. 2 players at once call me having weak hands, so I took a very good profitable decision. On the next cone I get an ace and the software waits an activity from me, but I skip this ace, just fold it, and I can see that there is a better hand behind me. Drexler has got it. I'm strongly leading on the table and I got the second ace in a row, and I fold it once again, cause I understand that the system aims to equalize stacks of players and I see that I am beaten by the same player, Drexler, again. The next hand I come to play a post-flop. Drexler just got a big stack. At the same time, I have already skipped 2 trapped aces, and most likely a positive wave of hands is going, and I take the pot. We skipped the wave of negative hands, took a small pot, so we can also play an all-in on ace-jack. The hand is most likely the best. It's not too important here though, since the opponent got 2-shot stack. We won the tourney. Let's see what happens next. We watch the following game right after the previous one. Pay attention that my table joined the same player Drexler again. Once again I concentrate on a good hands for a pre-flop, push and reasonably avoid post-flop. We got an ace. The question is, how did we end the previous tourney? We ended with the all-in on ace-jack with a profitable all-in. Means we should definitely fold this ace without even watching our opponent's decisions. Okay, I'm going to fold, and yes, exactly, Drexler goes for a free bet. A new hand comes, I limp on a small blind, and the software provokes me again by giving me a second pair on the flop simultaneously with top pairs for 2 players at once. I understand that a negative wave of hands is going and calmly fold my second pair. And I get an ace again. Now it's a bit more complicated situation. On the one hand, without taking into account decisions of other players, I am leaning to go all in on this hand, because I have already skipped 2 negative game counts in a row. But I also see Drexler's aggression, the same player who dominates me again and again. So I have to fold this hand, and as we can see, I folded absolutely right. I keep watching the game and waiting for a good push. I got queen jack here, but I don't like that 2 players at once joined. I decided to play it safe and fold the hand on the flop. An important event happens. The second player is out. I am on a bubble now with queen 5 suited. It's a difficult decision because this queen 5 hand may be a continuation of a negative counts wave for me, but taking into account that the software has already shown a big number of very strong hands, pocket jacks, pocket kings and others, means a wave of premium hands distributing on the table has passed. And also I have already skipped too many negative hands. I take a risk and go for a push. Successfully I take the blinds. And it's an interesting moment. Right after my push I got an ace. It's important to understand that the software reacts to actions of players. I understand that. I also understand that just increased my stack. If the system aims to take me, an effective player, out of the game, this ace is a provocation of the push to repeat. I have to fold the ace. We will never know what Drexler's hand was. He won the pot though. I skip the software's provocation, so it's time for a positive hand for me, and I can confidently push. That's what I do successfully. We should be attentive now. I skipped several hands and got a good hand again, but I just pushed on an ace, took 300 chips, so a negative hand is the next in line. And regardless of players' actions, I must fold this hand. Yes, I am still dominated by the same player Drexler again. We skip weak hands again. By the way, pay attention, I am still dominated by other players' hands. Means the system is waiting for my mistake on a weaker hands after I skip that king jack suited hand. This is a wave of negative game counts and it keeps going. And I get pocket freeze. Calmly go all in, cause I just skipped the trap on king jack suited before, a strong hand trap. I also successfully get the pot being on a big blind. I keep folding weak hands, and wrestler finally takes a risk and push into a premium hand of another player. As a result of many clever folds on a strong hands, we get the prize without any all-in played. We just made a highly profitable game. Guys, pay attention that I just try to show you how it works. In fact, you can make really important conclusions from this information. For example, for a cash game, if you just bluffed and won a huge pot, then get a great hand right after the pot, you should probably fold this hand. Or for multi-table tournament players, you just hit prizes twice in a row in a long entity tournament, and again you are going well, you are close to prizes in the third one, only 10 players left to earn the prize, you got some strong hand, you should probably also fold it, especially if you have already played several highly profitable all-ins in the start of the tourney. I will show you a couple of demonstrational games so that you could get more acquainted with the software logic, and we will move to a really interesting topic about how Red Star Poker software works on a post-flop. So a new tournament started. I pay my attention to good hands and start to fold weaker hands. Before this game I just played several profitable games, so I am playing this one really carefully. I got ace-2 suited on the second cone on a button. All the players before me fold their hands. Let's make a small pause and watch my recent game results. This is a profitability calculation of my gameplay in the last tournaments according to ICM. A green stripe of highly effective games is going. I am winning 66% of games in average and double my buy-ins up often enough. This is a good positive run on a short distance. In case I continue winning that fast, I will just make a cash out and the funds won't manage to convert into the room's commission in time. I realize it, and if it's true, then the only aim of Red Star to suggest me this ace-2 hand is to take me off the game with an unprofitable all-in, and according to my in-game statistics over hundreds of hands passed, the software knows that I go all-in on an ace having a stack of any size. I fold ace-2, not willing to lose any chips, and I see that player on a big blind reacts on a limp of player sitting next to me with a huge all-in. Most likely I fold it right. Most likely king 4 hand is the continuation of the negative wave of game cones for me. I also fold this hand, but I necessarily check if there is an aggression right behind me, taking into account that the player next to me just made a limp in a position of a small blind. He is not too aggressive, so he made the 3 blinds raise, having something better than my king 4. I got one more ace now. This decision is slightly harder, because the length of a negative hands wave depends on how well I played my previous tournaments. In case I played too effectively, the system will deal several traps in a row. And this is the way software makes all the players equal. I still fold the hand because blinds are too small at the moment, and it's simply irrational to risk my stack to take such a little pot, since I'm not sure if this is a new software trap. But we can see once again there is an aggression appears right behind. Pay attention that the aggression was started by a player right behind me, so the system repeatedly tries to pass this player my chips. I skip a weak hand and got an ace again, and now this is a guaranteed steal of the pot. I must go all in because my hand is definitely the best on the table. Why? Software can't put all the good hands against better hands of my opponents literally one by one. In this case the system's logic will be too obvious to players. We will be losing all the hands in a row or winning them in a row also. That is why after skipping off 2 aces and the king, they barely put me on one more ace trapped. Fortunately 2 players at once limp and I got all the blinds, a pretty big pot. I skip a hand and got an ace once again. Here I understand that I just pushed an ace, means I made a profitable decision, so the system will try to take my chips and it's senseless to play this ace. I fold the hand and see that as an answer to the limp, player on a big blind goes for a big raise. Looks like I folded right. An ace again. I skip the trap on ace-9, pretty hard one. Means the software generates a positive game con and I calmly take chips. So guys, the software just alternates clean and trapped aces here. I move forward and wait for a good hand. Got ace-10 offsuit. I'm supposed to push being on a button with such a strong hand, but I realize that I just pushed an ace only 3 hands ago, so I just fold. I understand that the software provokes me to commit a mistake, and there is a massive raise right behind me once again. One more raise of the same player. Here I get king 3 suited, and since I just skipped a trap on ace-10, I should probably go all in having the best hand, but I don't want to play aggressive against the chip leader. This is unprofitable according to ICM, so I fold the hand. It's more about a tournament poker strategy in general. 4 players left, 3 of us will get the prize. I get king 5 on a big blind, and the short stack, my biggest opponent, goes all in against me. I don't really know exactly if I got a better hand, but I saw that my last good hand, king 3 suited, was probably the best hand on the table. It means this time my king is a software trap and I prefer to fold the hand. And now I finally get a monster hand. After my fold on king 5, opponents will barely get pocket queens or better, and I can confidently push. I skipped all the negative game cones and played only positive ones, got a profitable game again. I got king 10 of suit here, and you can see that the software immediately deals me a trap hand after the profitable all-in, but I still play it to help the player on a big blind to take the short stack off. I'm going to show you the last game now, to be more precise only the start of this game, to illustrate it a bit better how the game looks on a longer distance. You can see 2 games in a row here in the history. For the beginning, let's watch what happened in the previous game, and only then we'll look at the start of the next one. I lost it, but look at the all-ins I played here, extremely profitable. Here is an all-in on ace-king about 70%. Here is an all-in on pocket tens, about 70% also, and I still lost the game after. And now let's move to the next game and watch the start of it. I skip the first weak hand, and here I get king queen of suit on a big blind. All the players fold, and the player on a big blind raises. Very soon we will see why I refuse playing post-flop, but I can't either push after 2 such ineffective all-ins because I understand that the software will provoke me for unprofitable decisions after highly profitable ones. And indeed, the small blind player shows me an ace. He got a better hand. I skip one more weak hand and get ace-queen. All the players before me fold. And here it's important to understand prehistory of the game. In the previous tournament I played very profitable all-ins. If I keep playing like that, I will withdraw money from Red Star Poker Room before it transforms into the room's commission. It means that Red Star needs to equalize my playing quality with the quality of my opponent's playing, so that all the players would play the same well. And dealing me ace-queen, the way there is a better hand right behind me, is the best way to reach this aim. Realizing this logic, I confidently fold ace-queen of suit on a button. At the moment I think this is enough to illustrate the main idea. The software is not only alternates positive and negative hands, provoking a player to commit mistakes and to make good decisions later one by one. to make a player play to zero, giving away the deposit to pay the room's commission without withdrawing any money. But also the software generates hands right after my active moves, means it reacts on my pushes and provokes me to commit a mistake in case I played well in the previous game or games. So playing in Red Star, it's necessary to take into account how well you have played several games before to play the next game correctly. It's important to remember and to understand prehistory of your game codes. Before we go to watch post-flop statistics, where we will talk not about a verbal description of Red Star poker room's cards dealing algorithm, but about facts of the software game manipulating, I want you to pay attention. Any of us is able to enter the room, run a game, and during 2 or 3 tournaments, or after 1 or 2 hundreds of cash hands played, check what I just shown you. You do not need just to believe me. By the way, look at the beauty of Red Star Poker Manager's idea. You got hands, and they are different every time, but the meaning of the game code is always the same. You win or you lose your hand in some order, irrespectively the concrete hand was dealt. If you play long multi-table tournaments, you will meet that negative and positive waves of game cones are longer there than in sit-and-go tournaments. Also, the length of a negative hands wave depends on how well you played your last games. I have shown you the very base, which describes an algorithm of Red Star card dealing process. You can read a more detailed description of the algorithm in English and in Russian languages in this file. Finally, we came to a part which will be interesting for those who like proofs and numbers, and also interesting for gambling supervision authorities of Europe. All the materials regarding this part of the video were sent to a number of European countries under consideration. What am I going to show you? Being a professional level player, after a year of break, I came to Red Star Poker Room and joined one of my favorite game types, heads up. To get used to the game, I decided to start from any not too expensive buy-in limit, and I don't regret that. During the game, I met players who leave the computer due to some personal reasons, and their stacks were moved to a sit-out shim. Instead of just stealing their blinds, I decided to check all the hands till showdown to see how Red Star Poker software dealt cards on a post-flop, and to check if the game matches with the natural chances. I played around 1000 hands like that, and this was enough to see how much the software manipulated the game through a post-flop, using the fact that players rarely see opponents' hands in the end of the game cone. Let's watch what really happens on a post-flop in numbers, and I will comment the logic of this software to you with a confirmation by actual statistics. The first we consider is the cyclicity of starting hand winning being played on a post-flop. If we just check the flop, the turn and the river, our chances to win the hand are expected to match with the theoretical chances. On a distance of 455 openly played hands, I met 6 pronounced waves of significantly frequent or rare winning of my hand as a result of board cards dealing. For example, I will comment the first wave splash of losses on a post-flop. We played a post-flop and on a distance of 455 flops, we undergo the wave of 21 hands length, where we won 28.6% of game counts instead of 56.6%. A probability to win 28.6% of hands or less in this case is 0.6%, and this wave appears once in 500 hands in average approximately. Chances to meet this wave on a distance of 455 hands are 43.5%. In total, during playing of these 455 hands, I made 6 waves of a sharp splash or a decrease of hands 1%. It's possible to register such a wave effect once in 1,700,000 hands approximately. A probability to see such a wave-like behavior of wins percentage on a distance of 455 game cones is only 18 thousandths. It raises suspicion that some algorithm of the software intervenes into the game, and roughly speaking, we're winning and then we're losing hands almost in a row. Let's take a note of this and continue watching what is going on and look at the cards dealing process from different angles. Let's watch how often I lead on the flop. Means how often when I join the flop I get an advantage in the game cone. The left column is my stack size. In start of a game I have got 50% of all the chips on the table, because it's a heads up and there are 2 players in the game. Since my opponent is in a sit out mode, he starts to give me chips for free every second hand in position of a small blind. And look at how my frequency of leading on the flop changes while my stack size is growing. The reason of this is obvious. The more advantage in chips I get, the more often my opponent starts to hit the flop. And on average his frequency of a flop hitting is 32%. It's alright. But once the software realizes that the player just gave me his buy-in for free with no fight, and my opponent starts to hit the flop significantly more often than before. Since the aim of the system is to equalize players between each other and to convert their bankrolls into a commission, avoiding withdrawing of funds from the room's account, the software tries to give chips back to the losing player to equalize our chances and to wait for me to commit a mistake against a weaker player. In other words, this dependence shows us that the software supports a weaker player. Let's pay attention to this moment and just continue considering of other post-flop game nuances. I draw your attention to that in a standard game we can't see this and the software uses it. An opportunity to watch the software behavior on a post-flop appeared due to my opponents who went sit out, and I used it to open all the cards. In fact, I just fooled the software, making all the game opened. Let's discuss a concrete and an important gaming situation now. Even before I got the statistics of all the opponent's cards open, during playing heads-ups in Red Star, I have noticed that every time when I had got a worse starting hand than my opponent has had, he hasn't hit the flop. And every time my hand has been better than his hand, he has hit the flop extremely often. It means in fact that the software blocks a possibility to win the hand, but doesn't ruin the frequency of my opponent's flop hitting at the same time. And this blocking of a stronger player winning against a weaker one is obvious in numbers. When I join the flop having a better starting hand than my opponent has, he hits the flop significantly more often than in case my starting hand is worse. A chance to meet such a spread on our distance in a random game is 0.33%, and this happens once in 132,000 flops in average. Just to understand the situation, if we look at how often my opponent has hit a flop when my stack size was 85% or bigger and my starting hand was better than the opponent's one, we can see this value is unbelievably high, more than 50% instead of 32%. Once again, let's assess a cyclicity of our opponent's flop hitting, same as we did in case of my hands winning against the opponent's hand cyclicity. And here on a distance of 431 flop, we can see as many as 10 wave splashes or decreases of the opponent's flop hitting. This can be observed only in 0.00021% cases, or once in 1,300,000,000 flops in average approximately. With a high confidence, we can stand on that the post-flop gaming is explicitly controlled by an algorithm. And considering everything I said earlier, this algorithm contains pretty concrete logic of equalizing players between each other to maximize the room's profit. But I suggest not to stop here and to go even further. Let's assess a real chance to absolutely randomly observe abnormal behavior of a random number generator on this distance. Let's watch how my and my opponent's starting hands are really dealt. How cyclical does it happen? I mean, let's take a look at the situation on a pre-flop. I decided to check how the most valuable and strong hands are dealt to players. This is a group of hands pocket eights or better and ace jack of suit or better. Chances to get any of these hands in a game cone are 6.8%, and I select waves of these hands dealing frequency increase and decrease. As an example, on the first wave of 47 hands length, we didn't get any hand of this range. Taking into account all the waves on a distance of 941 hand, we can see that it is possible to observe such vibrations of these hands dealing frequency in 5% of cases, or once in about 15,000 hands. It's not that rare, seems to be alright if we don't dig deeper. And here is what comes out: an algorithm of starting hands dealing clearly linked to the player's position on the table, and this is especially well seen in the analysis of my starting hands and my opponent's starting hands cyclicity on a big blind position. You can watch this data attentively if you download this Excel file presentation. Summarizing all the wave effects according to player's position, we get an incredible set of circumstances with 5 zeros after a dot. It is expected to observe such a wave effect of premium hands dealing process in a random game once in about 51,100,000,000 hands. The conclusion comes itself. The process of starting hands dealing by Red Star software submits a concrete algorithm of hands distributing between players and is not random. Let's summarize the results of our statistical research and assess chances to observe all the listed anomalies on a distance of 469 hands with all the cards opened. Taking into account abnormal behavior of a random number generator in several independent lines of observation, such as cyclicity of our hands dealing in position of a small blind, simultaneously cyclicity of our opponent's hands dealing, and also unbelievable cyclicity and compliance with the concrete economic logic of our opponent's combination dealing on a flop, we get incredibly low probability of that the game is based on a random hand dealing process. It's possible even more rarely than once in 100 billion observations, and happens once in 8,500,000,000,000 hands in average. And that's without considering all the previously announced factors, such as a clear logical connection between the frequency of our opponent's flop hitting and our stack leading in a heads-up game, without considering off-decoded algorithm of gaming process that I demonstrated in the first half of the video, means I speak about pure mathematics. Which conclusions can be done basing on this analysis? First, there is a clear dependence between the cards dealing process of Red Star Poker software and concrete game situations, and this dependence is implemented in the concrete algorithm which controls the game. Second, the software applies non-random algorithm of cards dealing to players on each stage of the game, on a pre-flop, on a flop, on a turn, and on a river. Third, the software controls a profitability of players, equalizing them between each other. Fourth, an influence of players on the game result on a long distance is minimal or is extremely limited by the software. Colleagues, I try to fully highlight the situation in Red Star Poker Room. In the conclusion, I want to comment several nuances which professional analysts and specialists in the sphere of the theory of probabilities and statistics do understand, but these nuances may be not obvious for professionals of other spheres. Let's talk about reliability of the provided Red Star dealing non-randomness proof, and specifically about the distance. I consider a distance of 469 game cones. Is this distance enough? The fact is that in statistics a distance is never considered without taking into account chances to register events we observe on this distance. Imagine you joined a live poker game in a casino, and after each game cone one of your opponents shows you his hand, pocket kings or pocket aces, and they do so 30 hands in a row every game cone. Is 30 hands enough to make a conclusion that the game is rigged? Most likely yes, it's enough, because this is about an absolutely incredible set of circumstances. Hope I answered the question about the distance. The second question, can we really judge about rigging in Red Star Poker Room based on the probability of the random number generator abnormal behavior of 8 decimal places after a %? This question is addressed to the gambling supervision authorities and also addressed to you guys. It's your right to answer it. But you should also take into account that in case you suppose this probability is not enough to make conclusions about integrity of the game in a poker room, then risking the life in air flights, for example, is even more unwise, cause aviation incidents happen significantly more often. This is also a reason to refuse arresting lawbreakers, since the judicial error probability once again is also seriously higher. The judicial system is not applicable then, and Red Star Poker should be allowed to keep earning the money. The last comment for supervision authorities. Colleagues, after the video the topic will pop up repeatedly and the question will come to its logical end, but you understand that after a time a pretty reasonable question will appear. Why did you decide to ignore my message and professionally prepared comprehensive information about the situation in Red Star Poker Room, in iPoker.net, in Playtech PLC, having the responsibility towards the society and having a possibility to stop misleading of your nations and time? What are the concrete measures you are going to implement to these organizations? Guys, thank you for watching such complicated stuff, and thank you for your attention. All the materials for detailed viewing you can find in this folder on a Google Drive. I posted the link in the comments to the video. Here you can find all the statistics. There is a text version of the video for those who feel more comfortable to read than to listen. There is also a record which confirms that the research information was taken from Red Star Poker Room's hand replayer based on my own personal games in the room. I have no enemies, but if I suddenly disappear, you got everything to lead this to a reasonable end. In case these materials and the video are accidentally deleted as a result of some illegal moves, those of you who managed to download it in time, just upload it please, if you share my views on the situation, not to let some criminal organizations continue fooling people all over the world.